Salam listeners, welcome back to my channel. This is the last part of the famous book Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. So let's start. Chapter number 6, Lesson 6. Work to learn, don't work for money. Job security meant everything to my educated dad. Learning meant everything to my rich dad. A few years ago, I granted an interview with a newspaper in Singapore. The young female reporter was on time and the interview got underway immediately. We sat in the lobby of a luxurious hotel, sipping coffee and discussing the purpose of my visit to Singapore. I was to share the platform with Zig Ziglar. He was speaking on motivation and I was speaking on the secret of the rich. Someday I would like to be a best-selling author like you, she said. I had seen some of the articles she had written for the paper and I was impressed. She had a tough, clear style of writing. Her articles held a reader's interest. You have a great style, I said in reply. What holds you back from achieving your dream? My work does not seem to go anywhere, she said quietly. Everyone says that my novels are excellent but nothing happens, so I keep my job with the paper. At least it pays the bills. Do you have any suggestions? Yes, I do, I said brightly. A friend of mine here in Singapore runs a school that trains people to sell. He runs sales training courses for many of the top corporations here in Singapore, and I think attending one of his courses would greatly enhance your career. She stiffened. Are you saying I should go to school to learn to sell? I nodded. You aren't serious, are you? Again I nodded. What is wrong with that? I was now back paddling. She was offended by something and now I was wishing I had not said anything. In my attempt to be helpful, I found myself defending my suggestion. I have a master's degree in England. I have a master's degree in English literature. Why would I go to school to learn to be a salesperson? I am professional. I went to school to be trained in a profession, so I would not have to be a salesperson. I hate salespeople. All they want is money, so tell me why I should study sales. She was packing her briefcase. The interview was over. On the coffee table sat a copy of an earlier best-selling book I wrote. I picked it up as well as the notes she had joined down on her legal pad. Do you see this? I said, pointing to her notes. She looked down at her notes. What? She said, confused. Again, I pointed deliberately to her notes. On her pad, she had written Robert Kiyosaki, best-selling author. It says best-selling author, not best writing author. I said quietly. Her eyes widened. I am a terrible writer, I said. You are a great writer. I went to sales school. You have a master's degree. Put them together and you get a best-selling author and a best writing author. Anger flared from her eyes. I'll never stoop so low as to learn how to sell. People like you have no business writing. I am a professionally trained writer and you are a salesman. It's not fair, she fumed. She put the rest of her notes away and hurried out through the large glass doors into the humid Singapore morning. At least she gave me a fair and favorable write-up the next morning. The world is filled with smart, talented, educated and gifted people. We meet them every day. They are all around us. A few days ago, my car was not running well. I pulled into a garage and the young mechanic had it fixed in just a few minutes. He knew what was wrong by simply listening to the engine. I was amazed. I am constantly shocked at how little talented people earn. I have met brilliant, highly educated people who earn less than $20,000 a year. A business consultant who specializes in the medical trade was telling me how many doctors, dentists struggle financially. All this time, I thought that when they graduated, the dollars would pour in. It was this business consultant who gave me the phrase, "They are one skill away from great wealth." What this phrase means is that most people need only to learn and master one more skill and their income would jump exponentially. I have mentioned before that financial intelligence is a synergy of accounting, investing, marketing, and law. Combine those four technical skills and making money with money is easier than most people would believe. When it comes to money, the only skill most people know is to work hard. The classic example of synergy of skills was the young writer of the newspaper. If she diligently learned the skills of sales and marketing, her income would jump dramatically. If I were her, I would take some courses in advertising, copywriting, as well as sales. Then, instead of working at newspaper, I would seek a job at an advertising agency. Even if it were a cut in pay, she would learn how to communicate in shortcuts that are used in successful advertising. She also would spend time learning public relations, an important skill. She would learn how to get millions in free publicity. Then at night and on weekends, she could be writing her great novel. When it was finished, she would be better able to sell her book. Then in a short while, she could be a best-selling author. When I came out with my first book, "If you want to be rich and happy, don't go to school," a publisher suggested I change the title to "The Economics of Education." I told the publisher that with a title like that, I would sell 2 books, one to my family and one to my best friend. The problem is that they would expect it for free. The obnoxious title, "If you want to be rich and happy, do not go to school," was chosen because we knew it would get tons of publicity. I am pro-education and believe in education reform. If I were not pro-education, why would I continue to press for changing our antiquated educational system? So I choose a title that would get me on more TV and radio shows simply because I was willing to be controversial. Many people thought I was a fruitcake, but the book sold and sold. When I graduated from the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy in 1969, my educated dad was happy. Standard Oil of California had hired me for its oil tanker fleet as a third mate. The pay was low compared with my classmates, but it was okay for a first real job after college. My starting pay was about $42,000 a year, including overtime, and I only had to work for 7 months. I had 5 months of vacation. I had a great career ahead of me, yet I resigned after 6 months with the company and joined the Marine Corps to learn how to fly. My educated dad was devastated. Rich dad congratulated me in school and in the workplace. The popular opinion is the idea of specialization, that is, in order to make more money or get promoted, you need to specialize. That is why medical doctors immediately begin to seek a specialty such as orthopedics, or the same is true for accountants, lawyers, pilots, and others. My educated dad believed in the same dogma. That is why he was thrilled when he eventually achieved his doctorate. He often admitted that schools reward people who study more and more about less and less. Rich dad encouraged me to do exactly the opposite. You want to know a little about a lot, was his suggestion. That is why for years I worked in different areas of his companies. For a while I worked in his accounting department. Although I would probably never have been an accountant, he wanted me to learn via osmosis. Rich Dad knew I would pick up jargon and a sense of what is important and what is not. I also worked as a busboy and construction worker as well as in sales, reservations and marketing. He was grooming Mike and me. That is why he insisted we sit in on the meetings with his bankers, lawyers, accountants and brokers. He wanted us to know a little about every aspect of his empire. When I quit my high-paying job with Standard Oil, my educated dad had a heart-to-heart talk with me. He could not understand my decision to resign from a career that offered high pay, great benefits, lot of time off, and opportunity for promotion. When he asked me one evening, "Why did you quit?" I could not explain it to him, though I tried hard to. My logic did not fit his logic. The big problem was that my logic was my rich dad's logic. Job security meant everything to my educated dad. Learning meant everything to my rich dad. Educated dad thought I went to school to learn to be a ship's officer. Rich dad knew that I went to school to study international trade. So as a student, I made cargo runs, navigations, large freighters, oil tankers and passenger ships to the Far East and South. Rich Dad emphasized that I should stay in the Pacific instead of taking ships to Europe because he knew that the emerging nations were in Asia, not Europe. While most of my classmates, including Mike, were partying at their houses, I was studying trade, people, business styles and cultures in Japan, Thailand, Singapore, Hong Kong, Korea and Philippines. I was partying also, but it was not in any freight house. I grew up rapidly. Educated dad just could not understand why I decided to quit and join the Marine Corps. I told him I wanted to learn to fly, but really I wanted to learn to lead troops. Rich Dad explained to me that the hardest part of running a company is managing people. He had spent 3 years in the army. My educated dad was draft exempt. Rich Dad valued learning to lead men into dangerous situations. Leadership is what you need to learn next. He said, if you are not a good leader, you will get shot in the back, just like they do in the business. Rich Dad was proud of me. My educated dad was ashamed. Being an intellectual, he thought that salespeople were below him. I worked with Xerox for 4 years until I overcame my fear of knocking on doors and being rejected. Once I could consistently be in the top 5 in sales, I again resigned and moved on, leaving behind another great career with an excellent company. In 1977, I formed my first company. Rich Dad had groomed Mike and me to take over companies, so I now had to learn to form them and put them together. My first product, the nylon and Velcro wallet, was manufactured in the Far East and shipped to a warehouse in New York, near where I had gone to school. My formal education was complete and it was time to test my wings. If I failed, I would go broke. Rich Dad thought it best to go broke before 30. You still have time to recover, was his advice. On the eve of my 30th birthday, my first shipment left Korea for New York. Today, I still do business internationally, and as my rich dad encouraged me to do, I keep seeking the emerging nations. Today, my investment company invests in South American countries and Asian countries as well as in Norway and Russia. There is an old cliche that goes, job is an acronym for just over broke. Unfortunately, I would say that applies to millions of people because school does not think financial intelligence is an intelligence. Most workers live within their means. They work and they pay the bills. There is another horrible management theory that goes, workers work hard enough to not be fired and owners pay just enough so that workers won't quit. And if you look at the pay scales of most companies, again, I would say there is a degree of truth to that statement. The net result is that most workers never get ahead. They do what they have been taught to do, get a secure job. Most workers focus on working for pay and benefits that reward them in short term but are often disastrous in the long term. Instead, I recommend to young people to seek work for what they will learn more than what they will earn. Look down the road at what skills they want to acquire before choosing a specific profession and before getting trapped in the rat race. Once people are trapped in the lifelong process of bill paying, they become like those little hamsters running around in those metal wheels. Their little furry legs are spinning furiously. The wheel is turning furiously, but come tomorrow morning, they'll still be in the same cage. Great job. Many hospitals in countries with specialized medicine need to make tough decisions such as who will live and who will die. They make those decisions purely on how much money they have and how old the patients are. If the patient is old, they often will give the medical care to someone younger. The older poor patient gets put to the back of the line. Just as the rich can afford better education, the rich will be able to keep themselves alive, while those who have little wealth will die. So I wonder, are workers looking into the futures or just until their next paycheck, never questioning where they are headed? When I speak to adults who want to earn more money, I always recommend the same thing. I suggest taking a long view of their life instead of simply working for the money and security, which I admit are important. I suggest they take a second job that will teach them a second skill. Often, I recommend joining a network marketing company, also called multi-level marketing, if they want to learn sales skills. Some of these companies have excellent training programs that help people get over their fear of failure and rejection, which are the main reasons people are unsuccessful. Education is more valuable than money in the long run. When I offer this suggestion, I often hear in response, "Oh, that is too much hassle," or "I only want to do what I am interested in." If they say it's too much of a hassle, I ask, "So you would rather work all your life giving 50% of what you earn to the government?" If they tell me I only do what I am interested in, I say I am not interested in going to the gym, but I go because I want to feel better and live longer. Unfortunately, there is some truth to the old statement, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Unless a person is used to changing, it's hard to change. But for those of you who might be on the fence when it comes to the idea of working to learn something new, I offer this word of encouragement. Life is much like going to the gym. The most painful part is deciding to go. Once you get past that, it's easy. There have been many days I have dreaded going to the gym, but once I am there and in motion, it is pleasure. After the workout is over, I am always glad I talked myself into going. If you are unwilling to work to learn something new and instead insist on becoming highly specialized within your field, make sure the company you work for is unionized. Labor unions are designed to protect specialists. My educated dad, after falling from grace with the governor, became the head of teachers union in Hawaii. He told me that it was the hardest job he ever held. My rich dad, on the other hand, spent his life doing his best to keep his companies from becoming unionized. He was successful. Although the unions came close, rich dad was always able to fight them off. When I ask the classes I teach how many of you can cook a better hamburger than McDonald's, almost all the students raise their hands. I then ask, so if most of you can cook a better hamburger, how come McDonald's make more money than you? The answer is obvious. McDonald's is excellent at business systems. The reason so many talented people are poor is because they focus on building a better hamburger and know little to nothing about business system. A friend of mine in Hawaii is a great artist. He makes a sizable amount of money. One day his mother's attorney called to tell him that she had left him $35,000. That is what was left for her estate after the attorney and the government took their shares. Immediately he saw an opportunity to increase his business by using some of his money to advertise. 2 months later, his first 4-color full-page ad appeared in an expensive magazine that targeted the very rich. The ad ran for 3 months. He received no replies from the ad, and all of his inheritance is now gone. He now wants to sue the magazine for misrepresentation. This is a common case of someone who can build a beautiful hamburger but knows little about business. When I asked him what he learned, his only reply was, "Advertising salesperson are crooks." I then asked him if he would be willing to take a course in sales and a course in direct marketing. His reply, "I don't have the time and I don't want to waste my money." The world is filled with talented poor people. All too often they are poor or struggle financially or earn less than they are capable of. Not because of what they know, but because of what they do not know. The focus on perfecting their skills at building a better hamburger rather than the skills of selling and delivering the hamburger. Maybe McDonald's does not make the best hamburger, but they are the best at selling and delivering a basic average burger. Poor dad wanted me to specialize. That was his view on how to pay more. Even after being told by the governor of Hawaii that he could no longer work in state government, my educated dad continued to encourage me to get specialized. Educated dad then took up the cause of the teachers' union, campaigning for further protection and benefits for these highly skilled and educated professionals. We argued often, but I know he never agreed that over-specialization is what caused the need for union protection. He never understood that the more specialized you become, the more you are trapped and dependent on that specialty. Rich Dad advised that Mike and I groom ourselves. Many corporations do the same thing. They find a young, bright student just out of business school and begin grooming that person to someday take over the company. So these bright young employees do not specialize in one department. They are moved from department to department to learn all the aspects of business system. The rich often groom their children or the children of others. By doing so, their children gain an overall knowledge of the operations of the business and how the various departments interrelate. For the World War II generation, it was considered bad to skip from company to company. Today, it is considered smart. Since people will skip from company to company rather than seek greater specialization in skills, why not seek to learn more than to earn? In the short term, it may earn you less, but it will pay dividends in the long term. The main management skills needed for success are: number 1, management of cash flow; number 2, management of systems; number 3, management of people. The most important specialized skills are sales and marketing. The ability to sell, to communicate to another human being, be it a customer, employee, boss, spouse, or child, is the base skill of personal success. Communication skills such as writing, speaking, and negotiating are crucial to a life of success. These are skills I work on constantly, attending courses or buying educational resources to expand my knowledge. As I have mentioned, my educated dad worked harder and harder. The more competent he became, he also became more trapped the more specialized he got. Although his salary went up, his choices diminished. Soon after he was locked out of government work, he found out how vulnerable he really was professionally. It is like professional athletes who suddenly are injured or are too old to play. Their once high-paying position is gone and they have limited skills to fall back on. I think that is why my educated dad sided so much with the unions after that. He realized how much a union would have benefited him. Rich Dad encouraged Mike and me to know a little about a lot. He encouraged us to work with people smarter than we were and to bring smart people together to work as a team. Today, it would be called a synergy of professional specialties. Today, I meet ex-school teachers earning hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. They earn that much because they have specialized skills in their field as well as other skills. They can teach as well as sell and market. I know of no other skills to be more important than selling and marketing. The skills of selling and marketing are difficult for most people, primarily due to their fear of rejection. The better you are at communicating, negotiating, and handling your fear of rejection, the easier life is. Just as I advised that newspaper writer who wanted to become a best-selling author, I advise anyone else today. Being technically specialized has its strength as well as its weaknesses. I have friends who are geniuses, but they cannot communicate effectively with other human beings, and as a result, their earnings are pitiful. I advise them to just spend a year learning to sell. Even if they earn nothing, their communication skills will improve, and that is priceless. In addition to being good learners, sellers, and marketers, we need to be good teachers as well as good students. To be truly rich, we need to be able to give as well as to receive. In case of financial or professional struggle, there is often a lack of giving and receiving. I know many people who are poor because they are neither good students nor good teachers. Both of my dads were generous men. Both made it a practice to give first. Teaching was one of their ways of giving. The more they gave, the more they received. One glaring difference is the giving of money. My rich dad gave lots of money away. He gave to his church, to charities, and to his foundation. He knew that to receive money, you had to give money. Giving money is the secret to most great wealthy families. That is why there are organizations like Rockefeller Foundation and the Ford Foundation. These are organizations designed to take their wealth and increase it as well as give it away in perpetuity. My educated dad always said, when I have some extra money, I'll give it. The problem was that there was never any extra, so he worked harder to draw more money in rather than focus on the most important law of money: give and you shall receive. Instead, he believed in receive and then you give. In conclusion, I became both dads. One part of me is a hardcore capitalist who loves the game of making money. The other part is a socially responsible teacher who is deeply concerned with his ever-widening gap between the haves and have-nots. I personally hold our educational system primarily responsible for this growing gap. Chapter 7: Overcoming Obstacles. The primary difference between a rich person and a poor person is how they manage fear. Once people have studied and become financially literate, they may still face roadblocks to becoming financially independent. There are 5 main reasons why financially literate people may still not develop abundant asset column that could produce a large cash flow. The 5 reasons are: number 1, fear; number 2, cynicism; number 3, laziness; number 4, bad habits; number 5, arrogance. Overcoming fear. I have never met anyone who really likes losing money, and in all my years I have never met a rich person who has never lost money. But I have met a lot of poor people who have never lost a dime investing. That is, the fear of losing money is real. Everyone has it, even the rich. But it's not having fear that is problem. It is how you handle fear. It's how you handle losing. It's how you handle failure that makes the difference in one's life. The primary difference between a rich person and a poor person is how they manage that fear. It's okay to be fearful. It's okay to be a coward when it comes to money. You can still be rich. We are all heroes at something and cowards at something else. My friend's wife is an emergency room nurse. When she sees blood, she flies into action. When I mention investing, she runs away. When I see blood, I don't run, I pass out. My rich dad understood phobias about money. Some people are terrified of snakes. Some people are terrified about losing money. Both are phobias, he would say. So his solution to the phobia of losing money was this little myth: if you hate risk and worry, start early. If you start young, it's easier to be rich. I won't go into it here, but there is a staggering difference between a person who starts investing at age of 20 versus age of 30. The purchase. But what if you don't have much time left or would like to retire early? How do you handle the fear of losing money? My poor dad did nothing. He simply avoided the issue, refusing to discuss the subject. My rich dad, on the other hand, recommended that I think like a Texan. I like Texas and Texans, he used to say. In Texas, everything is bigger. When Texans win, they win big, and when they lose, it's spectacular. They like losing? I asked. That's not what I'm saying. Nobody likes losing. Show me a happy loser and I'll show you a loser, said rich dad. It's a Texan's attitude toward risk, reward, and failure I am talking about. It's how they handle life. They live it big, not like most of people around here, living like roaches when it comes to money, terrified that someone will shine a light on them, and whimpering when the grocery clerk short-changes them a quarter. Rich dad went on, what I like best in the Texas attitude: they are proud when they win and they brag when they lose. Texans have a saying: if you are going to go broke, go big. You don't want to admit you went broke over a duplex. He constantly told Mike and me that the greatest reason for lack of financial success was because most people played it too safe. People are so afraid of losing that they lose, were his words. In my own life, I have noticed that winning usually follows losing. Before I finally learned to ride a bike, I first fell down many times. I have never met a golfer who had never lost a golf ball. I have never met people who have fallen in love who have never had their heart broken. And I have never met someone rich who has never lost money. So for most people, the reason they don't win financially is because the pain of losing money is far greater than the joy of being rich. Another saying in taxes is, everyone wants to go to heaven, but no one wants to die. Most people dream of being rich, but are terrified of losing money, so they never get to heaven. Rich Dad used to tell Mike and me stories about his trips to Texas. If you really want to learn the attitude of how to handle risk, losing, and failure, go to San Antonio and visit to Alamo. The Alamo is a great story of brave people who choose to fight knowing there was no hope of success. They choose to die instead of surrendering. It's an inspiring story worthy of study. Nonetheless, it's still a tragic military defeat. They got their butts kicked, so how do Texans handle failure? They still shout, remember the Alamo. Mike and I heard this story a lot. He always told us this story why he was about to go into a big deal, and he was nervous. After he had done all his due diligence and it was time to put up or shut up, he told us this story. Every time he was afraid of making a mistake or losing money, he told us this story. It gave him strength, for it reminded him that he could always turn a financial loss into a financial win. Rich Dad knew that failure would only make him stronger and smarter. It's not that he wanted to lose, he just knew who he was and how he would take a loss. He would take a loss and make it a win. That's what made him a winner and others losers. It gave him the courage to cross the line when others backed out. That's why I like Texans so much, he would say. They took a great failure and turned it into inspiration, as well a tourist destination that makes them millions. But probably his words that mean the most to me today are these: Texans don't bury their failures. They get inspired by them. They take their failures and turn them into rallying cries. Failure inspires Texans to become winners, but that formula is not just the formula for Texans, it is the formula for the winners. I have said that falling off my bike was part of learning to ride. I remember falling off only made me more determined to learn to ride, not less. I also said that I have never met a golfer who has never lost a ball. For top professional golfers, losing a ball or a tournament provides the inspiration to be better, to practice harder, to study more. That's what makes them better. For winners, losing inspires them. For losers, losing defeats them. Failure inspires winners and failure defeats losers. It is the big secret of winners. It's the secret that losers do not know. The greatest secret of winners is that failure inspires winning. Thus, they are not afraid of losing. If you have any desire to be rich, you must focus. Do not do what poor and middle class people do. Put their few eggs in many baskets. Put a lot of your eggs in a few baskets and focus. Follow one course until successful. If you hate losing, play it safe. If losing makes you weak, play it safe. Go with balanced investments. If you are over 25 years old and are terrified of taking risks, don't change. Play it safe, but start early. Start accumulating your nest egg early because it will take time. But if you have dreams of freedom, of getting out of rat race, the first question to ask yourself: how do I respond to failure? If failure inspires you to win, maybe you should go for it, but only maybe. If failure makes you weak or causes you to throw temper tantrums like spoiled brats who call attorneys to file lawsuits every time something doesn't go their way, then play it safe. Keep your daytime job or buy bonds or mutual funds, but remember, there is risk in those financial instruments also, even though they may appear safe. Overcoming cynicism. The sky is falling, the sky is falling. Most of us know the story of Chicken Little who ran around warning the barnyard of impending doom. We all know people who are that way. There is a Chicken Little inside each of us. As I started earlier, the cynic is really a little chicken. We all get a little chicken when fear and doubt cloud our thoughts. All of us have doubts. I am not smart. I am not good enough. So and so is better than me. Our doubts often paralyzed us. We play the what if game. What if the economy crashes right after I invest? What if I lose control and I can't pay the money back? What if things don't go as I planned? Or we have friends or loved ones who will remind us of our shortcomings. They often say, what makes you think you can do that? If it's such a good idea, how come someone else hasn't done it? That will never work. You don't know what you are talking about. These words of doubt often get so loud that we fail to act. A horrible feeling builds in our stomach. Sometimes we can't sleep, we fail to move forward, so we stay with what is safe and opportunities pass us by. We watch life passing by as we sit immobilized with a cold knot in our body. We have all felt this at one time in our lives, some more than others. Real estate is a powerful investment tool for anyone seeking financial independence or freedom. It is a unique investment tool, yet every time I mention real estate as a vehicle, I often hear, I don't want to fix toilets. That's what Peter Lynch calls noise. That's what my rich dad would say in the cynic talking, someone who criticizes and does not analyze, someone who lets their doubts and fears close their mind instead of open their eyes. So, when someone says, I don't want to fix toilets, I want to fire back, what makes you think I want to? They are saying a toilet is more important than what they want. I talk about freedom from the rat race and they focus on toilets. That is the thought pattern that keeps most people poor. They criticize instead of analyze. I don't once hold the key to your success. Rich dad would say, because I too do not want to fix toilets. I shop hard for a property manager who does fix toilets. And by finding a great property manager who runs houses or apartments well, my cash flow goes up. But more importantly, a great property manager allows me to buy a lot more real estate since I don't have to fix toilets. A great property manager is a key to success in real estate. Finding a good manager is more important to me than the real estate. A great property manager often hears of great deals before real estate agents do, which makes them even more valuable. That is what Rich Dad meant by I don't once hold the key to your success because I do not want to fix toilets. Either I figured out how to buy more real estate and expedite my getting out of the rat race. The people who continue to say I don't want to fix toilets often deny themselves the use of this powerful investment vehicle. Toilets are more important than their freedom. In stock market, I often hear people say, I don't want to lose money. Well, what makes them think I or anyone else likes losing money? They don't make money because they choose to not lose money. Instead of analyzing, they close their minds to another powerful investment vehicle, the stock market. So, whenever I hear people focusing on their I don't wants rather than what they do want, I know the noise in their head must be loud. Chicken Little has taken over their brain and is yelling, the sky is falling and toilets are breaking. So, they avoid their don't wants, but they pay a huge price. They may never get what they want in life. Instead of analyzing, their inner Chicken Little closes their mind. Overcoming laziness. Busy people are often the most lazy. We have all heard stories of a businessman who works hard to earn money. He works hard to be a good provider for his wife and children. He spends long hours at the office and brings work home on weekends. One day he comes home to an empty house. His wife has left with the kids. He knew he and his wife had problems, but rather than work to make the relationship strong, he stayed busy at work. This made his performance at work slips and he loses his job. Today, I often meet people who are too busy to take care of their wealth, and there are people too busy to take care of their health. The cause is the same. They are busy and they stay busy as a way of avoiding something they do not want to face. Nobody has to tell them, deep down they know. In fact, if you remind them, they often respond with anger or irritation. If they aren't busy at work or with the kids, they are often busy watching TV, fishing, playing golf, or shopping. Yet deep down they know they are avoiding something important. That's the most common form of laziness. Laziness by staying busy. So what is the cure for laziness? The answer is a little greed. For many of us, we were raised thinking of greed or desire as bad. Greedy people are bad people, my mom used to say. Yet we all have inside of us these yearning to have nice, new, or exciting things. So, to keep that emotion of desire under control, often parents find ways of suppressing the desire with guilt. You only think about yourself. Don't you know you have brothers and sisters? Was one of my mom's favorites. You want me to buy you what? Was a favorite of my dad. Do you think we are made of money? Do you think money grows on trees? We are not rich people, It wasn't so much the words, but the angry guilt trip that went with the words that go to me. Rich Dad forbade the words, I can't afford it. In my real home, that's all I heard. Instead, Rich Dad required his children to say, how can I afford it? He believed that the words, I can't afford it, shut down your brain. It didn't have to think anymore. How can I afford it? Opened up the brain and forced it to think and search for answers. But most importantly, he felt the word I can't afford it were a lie. And the human spirit knows it. The human spirit is very, very powerful. He would say it knows it can do anything. By having a lazy mind that says I can't afford it, a war breaks out inside you. Your spirit is angry and your lazy mind must defend its lie. The spirit is screaming, come on, let's go to the gym and work out. And the lazy mind says, but I am tired. I worked really hard today. Or the human spirit says, I am sick and tired of being poor. Let's get out there and get rich. To which the lazy mind says, rich people are greedy. Besides, it's too much bother. It's not safe. I might lose money. I am working hard enough as it is. I have got too much to do at work anyway. Look at what I have to do tonight. My boss wants to finish by morning. I can't afford it. Also causes sadness, helplessness that leads to despondency, and often depression. How can I afford it opens up possibilities, excitements, and dreams. So Rich Dad was not so concerned about what we wanted to buy as long as we understood that how can I afford it creates a stronger mind and a dynamic spirit. Thus, he rarely gave Mike or me anything. He would instead ask, how can I afford it? And that included college, which we paid for ourselves. It was not the goal, but the process of attaining the goal that he wanted us to learn. The problem I see today is that there are millions of people who feel guilty about their desire or their greed. It's old conditioning from their children. While they desire to have finer things that life offers, most have been conditioned subconsciously to say, I can't have that or I'll never be able to afford that. When I decided to exit the rat race, it was simply a question of how can I afford to never work again, and my mind began to kick out answers and solutions. The hardest part was fighting my real parents' dogma. We can't afford that. Stop thinking only about yourself. We don't think about others. Why don't you think about others? And other similar sentiments designed to suppress my greed. So, how do you beat laziness? Once again, the answer is a little greed. It's that radio station WIIFM, which stands for What's in It for Me. A person needs to sit down and ask, what would my life be like if I never had to work again? What would I do if I had all the money I needed? Without that little greed, the desire to have something better, progress is not made. Our world progresses because we all desire a better life. New inventions are made because we desire something better. We go to school and study hard because we want something better. So whenever you find yourself avoiding something you should be doing, then the only thing to ask yourself is, what is in it for me? Be a little greedy. It's the best cure for laziness. Too much greed, however, as anything in excess can be, is not good. But just remember what Mitchell Douglas said in the movie Wall Street, greed is good. Rich Dad said it differently. Guilt is worse than greed. For guilt robs the body of its soul. I think Eleanor Roosevelt said it best, do what you feel in your heart to be right, for you'll be criticized anyway. You'll be damned if you do and damned if you don't. Overcoming bad habits. Our lives are a reflection of our habits more than our education. I remember asking my rich dad about the habits of the rich. Instead of answering me outright, he wanted me to learn through example as usual. When does your dad pay his bills? Rich Dad asked. The first of the month, I said. Does he have anything left over? He asked. Very little, I said. That's the main reason he struggles, said Rich Dad. He has bad habits. Your dad pays everyone else first. He pays himself last, but only if he has anything left over, which he usually doesn't, I said. But he has to pay his bills, doesn't he? You are saying he shouldn't pay his bills? Of course not, said Rich Dad. I firmly believe in paying my bills on time. I just pay myself first before I pay even the government. But what happens if you don't have enough money? I asked. What do you do then? The same, said Rich Dad. I still pay myself first, even if I am short of money. My asset column is far more important to me than the government. But I said, don't they come after you? Yes, if you don't pay, said Rich Dad. Look, I did not say not to pay. I just said I pay myself first even if I am short of money. But I replied, how do you do that? It's not how, the question is why. Rich Dad said, okay, why? Motivation. Said Rich Dad, why do you think will complain louder if I don't pay them, me or my creditors? Your creditors will definitely scream louder than you, I said, responding to the obvious. You would not say anything if you did not pay yourself. So, you see, after paying myself, the pressure to pay my taxes and the other creditors is so great that it forces me to seek other forms of income. The pressure to pay becomes my motivation. I have worked extra jobs, started other companies, traded in the stock market, anything just to make sure those guys don't start yelling at me. The pressure made me work harder, forced me to think, and all in all made me smarter and more active when it comes to money. If I had paid myself last, it would have felt no pressure, but I would be broke. So it is the fear of the government or other people you owe money to that motivates you. That's right, said Rich Dad. You see, government bill collectors are big bullies. So are bill collectors in general. Most people give into these bullies. They pay them and never pay themselves. You know the story of the 98-pound weakling who gets sand kicked in his face? I nodded. I see that ad of weightlifting and bodybuilding lessons in the comic books all the time. Well, most people let the bullies kick sand in their faces. I decided to use the fear of the bully to make me stronger. Others get weaker. Forcing myself to think about how to make extra money is like going to the gym and working out with weights. The more I work my mental money muscles out, the stronger I get. Now I am not afraid of those bullies. I liked what Rich Dad was saying. So if I pay myself first, I get financially stronger mentally and physically. Rich Dad nodded. And if I pay myself last or not at all, I get weaker. So people like bosses, managers, tax collectors, bill collectors, and landlords push me around all my life just because I don't have good money habits. Rich Dad nodded just like the 98-pound weakling. Overcoming arrogance. What I know makes me money. What I don't know loses me money. Every time I have been arrogant, I have lost money. Because when I am arrogant, I truly believe that what I don't know is not important. Rich Dad would often tell me, I have found that many people use arrogance to try to hide their own arrogance. It often happens when I am discussing financial statements with accountants or even with investors. They try to bluster their way through the discussion. It is clear to me that they don't know what they are talking about. They are not lying, but they are not telling the truth. There are many people in the world of money, finances, and investments who have absolutely no idea what they are talking about. Most people in the money industry are just spouting off sales pitches like used car salesman. When you know you are arrogant in a subject, start educating yourself by finding an expert in the field or a book on the subject. Chapter 8, Getting Started. There is gold everywhere. Most people are not trained to see it. I wish I could say acquiring wealth was easy for me, but it wasn't. So in response to the question, how do I start? I offer the thought process I go through on a day-to-day basis. It really is easy to find great deals. I promise you that. It's just like riding a bike. After a little wobbling, it's a piece of cake. But when it comes to money, it takes determination to get through the wobbling. That's a personal thing. Unfortunately, 90% of the Western world subscribes to the above dogma simply because it's easier to find a job and work for money. If you are not one of the masses, I offer you the following 10 steps to awaken your financial genius. I simply offer you the steps I have personally followed. If you want to follow some of them, great. If you don't, make up your own. Your financial genius is smart enough to develop its own list. I offer you the following 10 steps as a process to develop your God-given powers over which only you have control. Number 1, find a reason greater than reality, the power of spirit. If you ask most people if they would like to be rich or financially free, they would say yes. But then reality sets in. The road seems too long with too many hills to climb. It's easier to just work for money and hand the excess over to your broker. A reason or a purpose is a combination of wants and don't wants. When people ask me what my reason for wanting to be rich is, I tell them that is a combination of deep emotional wants and don't wants. I will list a few. First, the don't wants, for they create the wants. I don't want to work all my life. I don't want what my parents aspired for, which was job security and a house in the suburbs. I don't like being an employee. I hated that my dad always missed my football games because he was so busy working on his career. I hated it when my dad worked hard all his life and the government took most of what he worked for at his death. He could not even pass on what he worked so hard for when he died. The rich don't do that. They work hard and pass it on to their children. Now the wants. I want to be free to travel the world and live in the lifestyle I love. I want to be young when I do this. I want to simply be free. I want control over my time and my life. I want money to work for me. Those are my deep-seated emotional reasons. What are yours? If they are not strong enough, then the reality of the road ahead may be greater than your reasons. I have lost money and been set back many times, but it was the deep emotional reason that kept me standing up and going forward. I wanted to be free by age 40, but it took me until I was 47, with many learning experiences along the way. As I said, I wish I could say it was easy. It wasn't, but it wasn't that hard either. I have learned that without a strong reason or purpose, anything in life is hard. If you do not have a strong reason, there is no sense reading further. It will sound like too much work. Number 2. Make daily choices, the power of choice. Choice is the main reason people want to live in a free country. We want the power to choose. Financially, with every dollar we get in our hands, we hold the power to choose our future, to be rich, poor, or middle class. Our spending habits reflect who we are. Poor people simply have poor spending habits. The benefit I had as a boy was that I loved playing Monopoly constantly. Nobody told me Monopoly was only for kids, so I just kept playing the game as an adult. I also had a rich dad who pointed out to me the difference between an asset and liability. So, a long time ago, as a little boy, I chose to be rich, and I knew that all I had to do was learn to acquire assets, real assets. My best friend Mike had an asset column handed to him, but he still had to choose to learn to keep it. Many rich families lose their assets in the next generation simply because there was no one trained to be good steward over their assets. Most people choose not to be rich. For 90% of the population, being rich is too much of a hassle, so they invent sayings that go, I am not interested in money, I'll never be rich, I don't have to worry, I am still young, when I make some money, then I'll think about my future. My husband or wife handles the finances. The problem with those statements is that they rob the person who chooses to think such thoughts of two things. One is time, which is your most precious asset. The second is learning. Having no money should not be an excuse to not learn. But that is a choice we all make daily, the choice of what we do with our time, our money, and what we put in our heads. That is the power of choice. All of us have choice. I just choose to be rich, and I make the choice every day. Invest first in education. In reality, the only real asset you have in your mind, the most powerful tool we have dominion over. Each of us has the choice of what we put in our brain once we are old enough. You can watch TV, read golf magazines, or go to class or on financial planning. You choose. Most people simply buy investments rather than first investing in learning about investing. A friend of mine recently had her apartment. The thieves took her electronics and left all the books, and we all have that same choice. 90% of population buys TV sets and only 10% buy business books. So what do? I go to seminars. I like it when they are at least 2 days long before I like to immerse myself in a subject. I love CDs and audiobooks. The reason I can easily review what I just heard. I was listening to an investor say something I completely disagreed with. Instead of becoming arrogant and critical, I simply listened to that 5-minute stretch at least 20 times, maybe more. But suddenly, by keeping my mind open, I understood why he said what he said. It was like magic. I felt like I had a window into the mind of one of the greatest investors of our time. I gained tremendous insight into the vast resources of his education and experience. The net result, I still have the old way I used to think. I now have a new way of looking at the same problem or solution. I have two ways to analyze a problem or trend, and that is priceless. If you have read this far, arrogance is not one of your problems. Arrogant people rarely read or listen to experts. Why should they? They are the center of the universe. There are so many intelligent people who argue or defend when a new idea clashes with the way they think. In this case, their so-called intelligence combined with arrogance equals arrogance. Each of us knows people who are highly educated or believe they are smart, but their balance sheet paints a different picture. A truly intelligent person welcomes new ideas, for new ideas can add to the synergy of the other accumulated ideas. Listening is more important than talking. If that were not true, God would not have given us 2 ears and only 1 mouth. Too many people think with their mouth instead of listening in order to absorb new ideas and possibilities. They argue instead of asking questions. I take a long view on my wealth. I do not subscribe to the get rich quick mentality most lottery players and casino gamblers have. I may go in and out of stocks, but I'm long on education. If you want to fly an airplane, I advise taking lessons first. I am always shocked at people who buy stocks or real estate but never invest in their greatest asset, their mind. Just because you bought a house or two does not make you an expert at real estate. Choose friends carefully. The power of association. First of all, I do not choose my friends by their financial statements. I have friends who have actually taken a vow of poverty, as well as friends who earn millions every year. The point is that I learn from all of them. Now, I will admit that there are people I have actually sought out because they had money. But I was not after their money, I was seeking their knowledge. In some cases, these people who had money have become dear friends. I have noticed that my friends with money talk about money. They don't do it to brag. They are interested in the subject. So I learn from them and they learn from me. My friends who are in dire financial straits do not like talking about money, business or investing. They often think it rude or unintellectual. So I also learn from my friends who struggle financially. I find out what not to do. I have several friends who have generated over $1 billion in their short lifetimes. The three of them report the same phenomena. Their friends who have no money have never come to them to ask them how they did it. But they do come asking for one of two things or both, a loan or a job. Warning. Don't listen to poor or frightened people. I have such friends, and while I love them dearly, they are the chicken littles of life. To them, when it comes to money, especially investments, it's always the sky is falling, the sky is falling. They can always tell you why something won't work. The problem is that people listen to them, but people who blindly accept doom and gloom information are also chicken littles. As that old saying goes, birds of a feather flock together. If you watch business channels on TV, they often have a panel of so-called experts. One expert will say the market is going to crash and the other will say it's going to boom. If you are smart, you listen to both. Keep your mind open because both have valid points. Unfortunately, most poor people listen to Chicken Little. I have had many close friends try to talk me out of a deal or an investment. Not long ago, a friend told me he was excited because he found a 6% certificate of deposit. I told him I earn 16% from the state government. The next day, he sent me an article about why my investment was dangerous. I have received 16% for years now, and he still receives 6%. I would say that one of the hardest things about wealth building is to be true to yourself and to be willing to not go along with the crowd. This is because in the market, it is usually the crowd that shows up late that is slaughtered. If a great deal is on the front page, it's too late in most instances. Look for a new deal, as we used to say as surfers. There is always another wave. People who hurry and catch a wave late usually are the ones who wipe out. Smart investors don't time the markets. If they miss a wave, they search for the next one and get themselves in position. This is hard for most investors because buying what is not popular is frightening. Timid investors are like sheep going along with the crowd. On their greed gets them in when wise investors have already taken their profits and moved on. Wise investors buy an investment when it's not popular. They know their profits are made when they buy, not when they sell. They wait patiently. As I said, they do not time the market. Just like a surfer, they get in position for the next big swell. It's all insider trading. There are forms of insider trading that are illegal, and there are forms of insider trading that are legal. But either way, it's insider trading. The only distinction is how far away from the inside you are. The reason you want to have rich friends is because that is where the money is made. It's made on information. You want to hear about the next boom, get in and get out before the next burst. I'm not saying do it illegally, but the sooner you know, the better your chances are for profits with minimal risk. That is what friends are for, and that is financial intelligence. Point number 4. Master a formula and then learn a new one. The power of learning quickly. In order to make bread, every baker follows a recipe even if it's only held in their head. The same is true for making money. Most of us have heard the saying, "You are what you eat." I have a different slant. I say, "You become what you study." In other words, be careful what you learn, because your mind is so powerful that you become what you put in your mind. For example, if you study cooking, you then tend to cook. If you don't want to be a cook anymore, then you need to study something else. When it comes to money, the masses generally have one basic formula they learned in school, and it is this: work for money. The predominant formula I see in the world is that every day millions of people get up, go to work, earn money, pay bills, balance checkbooks, but some mutual funds and go back to work. This is the basic formula or recipe. If you are tired of what you are doing or you are not making enough, it's simply a case of changing the formula via which you make money. In today's fast-changing world, it's not so much what you know anymore that counts, because often what you know is old. It is how fast you learn. That skill is priceless. It's priceless in finding faster formulas, recipes, if you will, for making. Working hard for money is an old formula born in the day. Pay yourself first. The power of self-discipline. If you cannot get control of yourself, do not try to get rich. It makes no sense to invest, make money and blow it. It is the lack of self-discipline that causes most lottery winners to go broke soon after winning millions. It is the lack of self-discipline that causes people who get a raise to immediately go out and buy a new car or take a. It is difficult to say which of the 10 steps is the most important, but of all the steps, this step is probably the most difficult to master if it is not already a part of your makeup. I would venture to say that personal self-discipline is the number one factor between the rich, the poor, and the middle class. Simply put, people who have low self-esteem and low tolerance for financial pressure can never be rich. As I have said, a lesson learned from my rich dad was that the world will push you around. The world pushes people around not because other people are bullies, but because the individual lacks internal control and discipline. People who lack internal fortitude often become victims of those who have self-discipline. In the entrepreneur classes I teach, I constantly remind people to not focus on their product, service, but to focus on developing management skills. The 3 most important management skills necessary to start your own business are management of: number 1, cash flow; number 2, people; number 3, personal time. I would say the skills to manage these 3 apply to anything, not just entrepreneurs. The 3 matter is the way you live your life as an individual or as part of family, a business, a charitable organization, a city, or a nation. Each of these skills is enhanced by the mastery of self-discipline. I do not take the saying, pay yourself first, lightly. The statement, pay yourself first, comes from George Clason's book, The Richest Man in Babylon. Millions of copies have been sold, but while millions of people freely repeat that powerful statement, few follow the advice. As I said, financial literacy allows one to read numbers, and numbers tell the story. By looking at a person's income statement and balance sheet, I can readily see if people who spout the words "pay yourself first" actually practice what they preach. Kim and I have had many bookkeepers, accountants, and bankers who have had a major problem with this way of looking at pay yourself first. The reason is that these financial professionals actually do what the masses do. They pay themselves last. There have been times in my life when, for whatever reasons, cash flow was far less than my bills. I still paid myself first. My accountant and bookkeeper screamed in panic, "They are going to come after you. The IRS is going to put you in jail. You are going to ruin your credit rating. They'll cut off the electricity." I still paid myself first. Why, you ask? Because that's what the story, The Richest Man in Babylon, was all about. The power of self-discipline and the power of internal fortitude. As my rich dad taught me, the first month I worked for him, most people allow the world to push them around. A bill collector calls and you pay or else. A sales clerk says, "Oh, just put it on your charge card." Your real estate agent tells you, "Go ahead." The government allows you a tax deduction on your home. That is what the book is really about. Having the guts to go against the tide and get rich. You may not be weak, but when it comes to money, many people get wimpy. I am not saying be irresponsible. The reason I don't have high credit card debt is because I pay myself first. The reason I minimize my income is because I don't want to pay it to the government. That is why my income comes from my asset column. Although I pay my bills last, I am financially astute enough to not get into a tough financial situation. I don't like consumer debt. I actually have liabilities that are higher than 99% of the population, but I don't pay for them. Other people pay for my liabilities. They are called tenants. So rule number 1 is paying yourself first is don't get into consumer debt in the first place. Although I pay my bills last, I set it up to have only small unimportant bills that are due. Poor people have poor habits. A common bad habit is innocently called dipping into savings. The rich know that savings are only used to create more money, not to pay bills. I know that sounds tough, but as I said, if you are not tough inside, the world will always push you around anyway. If you do not like financial pressure, then find a formula that works for you. A good one is to cut expenses, put your money in the bank, pay more than your fair share of income tax. Buy safe mutual funds and take the vow of the average. But this violates the pay yourself first rule. This rule does not encourage self-sacrifice or financial abstinence. It doesn't mean pay yourself first and starve. Life was meant to be enjoyed. If you call on your financial genius, you can have all the goodies of life, get rich and pay bills. And that is financial intelligence. Use assets to buy luxuries. The power of focus. A friend's child has been developing a nasty habit of burning a hole in his pocket. Just 16, he wanted his own car. The excuse all his friends' parents gave their kids car. The child wanted to go into his savings and use it for a down payment. That was when his father called me and then came to see me. Do you think I should let him do it or should I just buy him a car? I answered, it might relieve the pressure in the short term, but what have you taught him in the long term? Can you use this desire to own a car and inspire your son to learn something? Suddenly the lights went on and he hurried home. 2 months later, I ran into my friend again. Does your son have his new car? I asked. No, he doesn't, but I gave him $3,000 for the car. I told him to use my money instead of his college money. Well, that's generous of you, I said. Not really. The money came with a hitch. So what was the hitch? I asked. Well, first we played your cash flow game. We then had a long discussion about the wise use of money. After that, I gave him a subscription to the Wall Street Journal and a few books on the stock market. Then what? I asked. What was the catch? I told him the $3,000 was hit, but he could not directly buy a car with it. He could use it to find a stockbroker and buy and sell stocks. Once he had made $6,000 with the $3,000, the money would be his for the car, and the $3,000 would go into his college fund. And what are the results? I asked. Well, he got lucky early in his trading but lost everything a few days later. Then he really got interested. Today I would say he is down $2,000, but his interest is up. He has read all the books I bought him and he is gone to the library to get more. He reads the Wall Street Journal, watching for indicators. He is got only $1,000 left, but his interest and learning are sky high. He knows that if he loses that money, he works for 2 more years, but he does not seem to care. He even seems uninterested in getting a car because he is found a game that is more fun. What happens if he loses all the money? I asked. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. I would rather have him lose everything now than wait till he is over age to risk losing everything. And besides, that is the best $3,000 I have ever spent on his education. What he is learning will serve him for life, and he seems to have gained a new respect for the power of money. As I said earlier, if a person cannot master the power of self-discipline, it is best not to try to get rich. I say this because although the process of developing cash flow from an asset column is easy in theory, what's hard is the mental fortitude to direct money to the correct use. If we give 100 people $10,000 at the start of the year, I believe that at the end of the year, number 1, 80 would have nothing left. In fact, many would have created greater debt by making a down payment on a new car, refrigerator, electronics, or a holiday. Number 2, 16th would have increased that $10,000 by 5 to 10%. Number 3, 4 would have increased it to $20,000 or into the millions. We go to school to learn our profession so we can work for money. It is my opinion that it's just as important to learn how to have money work for you. I love my luxuries as much as anyone else. The difference is I don't buy them on credit. It's the keep up with the Johnson's trap when I wanted to buy a Porsche. The easy road would have been to call my banker and get a loan. Instead of choosing to focus in the liability column, I choose to focus in the asset column. As a habit, I use my desire to consume to inspire and motivate my financial genius to invest. Remember, the easy road often becomes hard and the hard roads often becomes easy. To be the master of money, you need to be smarter than it. Then money will do as it is told. It will obey you. Instead of being a slave to it, you will be the master of it. That is financial intelligence. Both of my dads were teachers. My rich dad taught me a lesson I have carried all my life, the necessity of being charitable or giving. My educated dad gave a lot of his time and knowledge, but almost never gave away money. He usually said that he would give when he had some extra money, but of course, there was rarely any extra. My rich dad gave money as well as education. He believed firmly, if you want something, you first need to give. He would always say when he was short of money, he gave money to his church or to his favorite charity. If I could leave one single idea with you, it is that idea: whenever you feel short or in need of something, give what you want first and it will come back in buckets. This is true for money, a smile, love, or friendship. I know it is often the last thing a person may want to do, but it has always worked for me. I trust that the principle of reciprocity is true and I give what I want. I want money, so I give money and it comes back in multiples. I want sales, so I help someone else sell something and sales come to me. I want contracts and I help someone else get contracts. Like magic, contracts come to me. I heard a saying years ago that went, God does not need to receive, but humans need to give. My rich dad would often say poor people are more greedy than rich people. He would explain that if a rich person was rich, that person was providing something that other people wanted. In my life, whenever I have felt needy or short of my money or short of health, I simply went out or found in my heart what I wanted and decided to give it first. And when I gave, it always come back. It reminds me of the story of the guy sitting with firewood in his arms on a cold, freezing night. He is yelling at the pot, "Bleed, stop. When you give me some heat, then I will put some wood in you." And when it comes to money, love, happiness, sales, and contracts, all one needs to remember is to give first. Often just the process of thinking of what I want and how I could give that to someone else breaks free a torrent of bounty. Whenever I feel that people aren't smiling at me, I simply begin smiling and saying hello. Like magic, the next thing I know, I am surrounded by smiling people. It is true that your world is only a mirror of you. So that's why I say, teach and how you shall receive. I have found that the more I teach those who want to learn, the more I learn. If you want to learn about money, teach it to someone else. There are times when I have given and nothing has come back, or what I have received is not what I wanted. But upon closer inspection and soul searching, I was often giving to receive in those instances instead of giving for the joy that giving itself brings. My dad taught teachers and he became a master teacher. My rich dad always taught young people his way of doing business. There are powers in this world that are much smarter than we are. You can get there on your own, but it's easier with the help of powers that be. You only need to be generous with what you have. Chapter number 9. Still want more? Here are some to-dos. Many people may not be satisfied with my 10 steps. They see them more as philosophies than actions. I think understanding the philosophy is just as important as the actions. There are many people who want to do instead of think, and then there are people who think but do not do. I would say that I am both. I love new ideas and I love actions. So for those who want to do a list on how to get started, I will share you some of the things I do in abbreviated form. Stop doing what you are doing. In other words, take a break and assess what is working and what is not working. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. Stop doing what is not working and look for something new. Look for new ideas, for new investing ideas. Find someone who has done what you want to do. Take classes, read and attend seminars. Make lots of offers. Look for people who want to buy first, then look for the people who want to sell. Think big. Learn from history. Action always beats inaction. These are just a few of the things I have done and continue to do to recognize opportunities. The important words are have done and do. As repeated many times throughout the book, you must take actions before you can receive the financial rewards. Act now. Final thoughts. I would like to share some final thoughts with you. The main reason I wrote this book and the reason it has remained a bestseller since 2000 was to share insights into how increased financial intelligence can be used to solve many of life's common problems. Without financial training, we all too often use the standard formulas to get through life: work hard, save, borrow, and pay excessive taxes. Today, more than ever, we need better information. I use the following story as an example of a financial problem that confronts many young families today. How do you afford a good education for your children and provide for your own retirement? It requires using financial intelligence instead of hard work. Take action. All of you were given two great gifts: your mind and your time. It is up to you to do what you please with both. With each dollar bill that enters your hand, you and only you have the power to determine your destiny. Spend it foolishly and you choose to be poor. Spend it on liabilities and you join the middle class. Invest it in your mind and learn how to acquire assets, and you will be choosing wealth as your goal and your future. The choice is yours and only yours. Every day, with every dollar, you decide to be rich, poor, or middle class. Choose to share this knowledge with your children and you choose to prepare them for the world that awaits. No one else will. You and your children's future will be determined by choices you make today, not tomorrow. I wish you great wealth and much happiness with this fabulous gift called life. Robert Kiyosaki. So guys, that was the end of the famous book Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. I hope you all enjoy it very much, and if you really love what I am doing, then you can also do one thing, that is to encourage my efforts. And how can you do that? You can do by liking and subscribing to my channel, and you can also share my videos, my channel, with your friends and family. That's how you can encourage me. Thank you so much.